Welcome to the Vin Armani Show. We are streaming live. Hold on one second. Christian, I think it was either your phone. I think it was your phone that I was hearing. Were you streaming our show before we started? Yeah. Welcome to the Welcome to the Vin Armani Show. We are streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Vin Armani. Also on Twitter and Periscope at Vin Armani is my handle there. We are also streaming live on Facebook at the Facebook page of our content partner Activist Post. And we are also streaming live on Christian's phone, which I'm hearing myself in repeat. We have a great show planned for you today. We have legendary artist MEAR One as our guest. Also, we've got some news, a little breakdown of this Moab strike in Afghanistan and what that's all about. And in addition to that, I want to talk a little bit about the United controversy and how this was not really an example of an issue with corporate behavior per se, but really an issue with what happens when you try to get the state to solve your problems. We've got some new audio equipment, so hopefully the audio is sounding good. We've made some technical changes, so when we're 25 shows in at this point, about 25 weeks in, and so we're deciding to switch some things up, so there may be some new growing pains at this little section, but getting the tech a little more fired up. And here to join me in this experiment and see how our new tech is going on, my good friend, co-host, and producer, Mr. Christian Reyes. Christian.
Thank you, Vin.
Good morning.
Oh, man, that was funny.
I
couldn't hear anything.
No, I know, because our mics were muted, but I've only got the one earpiece in, so I'm like, what the fuck? I'm hearing the repeat. What is going on?
That's
but
awesome.
You know what? At least we know we've got one viewer, and he's sitting right over here. So, dude, great show planned. MEAR One is coming on, which is fantastic. I've been a huge fan of graffiti and street art pretty much my entire life, and this dude coming up in LA, this guy is like, he's a legend. Yeah, so I ran into him in Acapulco the last evening that I was there, and we sat and we talked for several hours, and he's sort of new to embracing and calling himself an anarchist or a voluntarist, but I think, as people will see with his mindset, his politics, and what he's expressed in his art, that particularly the audience of this show, the readership of Activist Post, he's been there for a long time, longer than most people. I mean, he's basically been spreading the message of peace and of liberty without calling himself an anarchist for decades now.
It's awesome.
So it's great to have him. It's great to have him on. I did want to talk about, before we dig into these stories, you and I were talking as we were getting sort of ready and prepping for today. You and I started talking about this Facebook shooting, the recent Facebook shooting. The guy in Cleveland, Steve Stevens, right? Which almost made me feel...
It's a very weird name.
It's a little false flaggy.
Yeah.
A little false flaggy. The fact that his name is like Sirhan, like the fact that his name is Steve Stevens is a little weird, but what we were talking about was I've been now, on a reality TV show for, it's been 7 years that I've experienced the sort of weird relationship that our culture has with celebrity, even reality celebrity, even celebrity that's sort of unearned, right? Even just that you show up in tabloids and whatnot. I had a conversation a couple years ago with one of my co-stars. We were working out, and he was upset because we had not shown up in any tabloids, People or any of the Us Weekly or whatever. And I said back to him, I was like, dude, no, I'm glad about that. Yeah. I'm glad that I can be on a reality show, I can get a paycheck, it's opened some doors. I have a little bit of enough celebrity that it can be valuable, but we've managed to not wind up in any of these tabloids. And he told me, no, man, all publicity is good publicity. And I was like, it's actually not. And people have been destroyed, had their lives destroyed by tabloids. That's generally what tabloids do. They build you up and then they tear you down. I see now this logical progression now that anybody can turn themselves into a celebrity, an infamous celebrity, if you will, instantaneously. And it's funny, this was a total Vince Stradamus thing. Because last month, when YouTube Live put up that you could stream live from your phone, I did a tweet. We have this little streaming tweet. So it should be the first one there. Yep, there you go. This was my tweet. Pretty much 1 month to the day from when this shooting happened. And the tweet is, YouTube just released live streaming for mobile phones. God help us all. And people might have thought that I was joking. No, I'm not joking.
And we saw it the last couple days with the...
Well, what it is that it's a natural human instinct for attention.
Yeah.
Right? People want to be noticed. They want their work to be noticed. They want their thoughts to be noticed.
Ooh,
but instead of, like, before you have something where you have the instant gratification of a YouTube Live or Instagram or Snapchat, before you have that instant gratification, you would have to, like, learn how to write, learn how to create music, learn how to film something, learn how to do design, or spend your time and learn how to become a great artist like MEAR One.
Right.
Millions of people have seen his work because he's a muralist. And he does murals in major metropolitan areas. But it takes a lot of talent for someone to want to pay you to paint on the side of their building. Now, you don't have to have any talent. Like, it's the logical progression of reality TV and the Kardashians and that culture.
Yeah, right. I just realized something as you were talking about that, too. And I think people are getting these two things
Turn your mic up a little bit,
mistaken.
dude. Yeah. There we go. A little bit. There we go.
Go ahead. I think they're getting these two things mistaken. And it's attention and admiration.
Sure.
So... because you're getting attention doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting admiration. Admiration is a true form. I think most people are seeking that and the instant gratification they think is going to bring them admiration, but it's not going to bring them admiration. It's just going to bring them attention.
Well, you think about even the icons that are used for liking, the heart. That's that. It's, you figure some chick who's got her tits and ass out, right?
Yeah.
Like, she's getting all these hearts or whatever, but it's like, are they really admiring you? But our brains are not evolved enough for us to make that separation.
Right.
We get the dopamine response.
Yeah.
We get all of the chemical responses of being paid attention to that would have meant survival for our primitive ancestors, for our pre-human ancestors that are surviving in these primitive groups. And we're reaching a point. I think that, yes, you had the thing with the kids who were all together, who like did that thing with that kid, but this is a grown man with a job. He's a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity, so meaning he went to college, right, college educated, seemingly the way he was talking, seemingly coherent, relatively articulate, didn't seem like a total psychopath.
No, not at all.
But did some psychopathic shit because for the likes, for the attention. And with that instant gratification, I mean, I'm not saying that it's good or bad. I'm saying that it's here and that this is not the last time that we're going to see it. And the most interesting part about it was, for me, I went on YouTube and it was all the people who then went on their own YouTube, Periscope, Instagram Live, and commented on what this dude was doing.
Yeah.
And then some of those got likes and some of those got views, and it's like, and comments and shit.
Right.
And it's like, the question is, what are you in it for? What are you doing? Right? Like, it's not, we're sitting here and we do a live show, but that's because I find it valuable to push the information to people.
Right.
Some people have said, oh, why don't you, I'm surprised you don't have more followers on here or something like that. But it's like, would I change what we're doing? Would I change our message if we had 1 million more followers? If I would, then the message is bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point.
Right? Like, would MEAR change? I mean, he's been at it for 30 years. We'll talk to him about that. Like, he's not putting that art up. Some of the murals that he puts up are in places that are actually relatively difficult to see. We'll talk about one of those in particular that I actually, back in 2010, actually witnessed him doing. I've got the photos that I took of him doing the mural. You know, he's standing there doing it 7 years ago. I've been a fan of his that long. So you don't do it for the likes. You don't do it so that it's seen. Yes, you'd like it to be seen. Yes, you'd like it to be admired, but you do it because you have something of value to express.
Right.
And if other people find it of value, then you'll get a lot of people checking it out.
Yep.
But maybe a lot of people don't find value in it until you're dead. I'm an agorist. Samuel Edward Konkin is dead. But his books are just now really being picked up, where people are really able to utilize some of the things. It may be that. It may be that in your lifetime you're not even appreciated. You don't do it to be appreciated.
Yeah.
You do it because you have something to express. So let's talk about that in that vein. Because unfortunately, we have a president who doesn't quite do that. We have a president who takes actions and who's being manipulated because of his ego in taking actions to be noticed, to have his name on shit. That's what he does. Let's talk about the mother of all bombs that was dropped in Afghanistan. First one of these that the U.S. has dropped. This is news number one. Donald Trump dropped currently the largest non-nuclear bomb on Afghanistan, on a remote cave complex in Afghanistan. And this was after the Syria strike. So he's going week by week. Again, just like the Syria strike we covered. Well, actually, I've got somebody even better to cover this. We did the Syria strike last week, but James Corbett came out with a great video, great little Syria video. It's very quick. If you haven't seen this, this is a must-see. If you like it, please go to Corbett Report on YouTube and share this video. It's really great. Let's just do Corbett first on this Syria video.
On the morning of April 4, 2017, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, on the verge of a military victory against the terrorist insurgency in his country and on the eve of peace talks that would secure his position as president, decided to use chemical weapons he didn't have against a target of no military significance in front of as many cameras as possible to cross the one red line that would ensure his own government's downfall. Soon after, the Academy Award-winning White Helmets, noted for their Oscar-worthy performances, persistent proximity to al-Qaeda, and financial dependence on U.S. aid, bravely risked their lives, handling Syrian victims barehanded against every protocol in the book. Without presenting a shred of evidence, President Donald Trump boldly launched a military strike against Shayrat Airfield because
national security interest,
promising to help the
beautiful babies.
Offer does not apply to babies in Gaza, Yemen, Pakistan, or basically anywhere else. That military strike, a volley of 59 Tomahawk land attack missiles of which 23 actually made it to the target, failed to take out a single runway or even keep the airbase from operating for even 24 hours, but was a complete success for ExxonMobil, Raytheon, and Donald Trump. No one could question the wisdom of striking Syria, except Donald Trump, and no one could oppose such a move, except Russia. The Trump train, still convinced by candidate Trump,
and by listening to guys like Lindsey Graham drop bombs here, drop bombs on Assad, drop bombs on ISIS. Oh, but they're fighting each other, so maybe we shouldn't do that.
and
So could you convince Putin to get Assad to step aside?
Well, they've been trying to do that. Could I? I don't think it's that important, to be honest with you. I think, frankly, let's say you get rid of Assad or you knock out that government, who's going to take over? The people that we're backing, and then you're going to have, like, Libya?
Concluded that this was seventh-dimensional backgammon to make China afraid of the U.S.'s willingness to spend $100 million in a fearsome show of failing to destroy a single airfield. Throughout the world, people rejoice as a horrible secular regime in the Middle East is replaced by yet another peace-loving band of ragtag human rights campaigners and child beheaders motivated by a desire to subdue the armies of Rome in an apocalyptic confrontation in Dabiq. The chemicals for the previous Red Line attack in Syria have since been proven to come from Libya with US approval, but that's probably not relevant to this case. The CIA has released declassified report after declassified report showing that the plan to topple Syria's government has been in the works for decades, but this just shows that they were right all along. The mainstream media unquestioningly asserts that the story is true because the US government says so, but that's okay because we all know the MSM is full of unbiased truth-tellers and dig hard to get the raw facts on every story.
We see these beautiful pictures at night from the decks of these two U.S. Navy vessels in the eastern Mediterranean. I am tempted to quote the great Leonard Cohen, "I'm guided by the beauty of our weapons," and they are beautiful pictures.
Even members of Congress think the story is a load of hogwash, but that's okay because they're probably crazy.
Because frankly, I don't think Assad would have done that. It does not serve his interests. It would tend to draw us into that civil war even further.
Who do you think is behind it? Who do you think is behind it?
Meanwhile, the White House has released a report on its intelligence about the chemical attack that refutes its own version of the story, but that's okay because when has the White House ever lied people into war? This man doesn't exist, and if you think he does, you're an enemy of humanity who should apologize for having been born. Likewise, him, her, him, and him and her. This is the 100% true story of the Syria strikes, and if you support sites like the Corporate Report that question it in any way, you are a moonbeam, fake news, tyrant-loving, hippie-pinko Russian agent and should commit ritual suicide immediately. If you love your country and or liberty, NASCAR, supermodels, TV, water slides, or your mother, you will not question this story in any way. Ever. This message has been brought to you by the Friends of the Brookings Institute, Raytheon, Genie Oil, Oded Yunon, ICIASIS, and the New York Times. Because ignorance is strength.
As always, James Corbett absolutely knocks it out of the park. This is really the only way that I think is appropriate to respond to all of this because it is absolutely absurd. I mean, these are real deaths, but it's a theater of the absurd with real fucking bombs dropping. So let's talk about this mother of all bombs. So this is the massive ordnance air blast, MOAB, also called mother of all bombs. Now here's another interesting part of this story. When it first broke, all the news outlets said that one of these bombs cost $314 million. Okay, then that was changed to say there were 20 of these bombs, but the program cost was $314 million. Then the government, or someone, came out and said, oh no, they only cost $170,000. Now, this turns out to not be true. It's 22,000 pound of TNT in terms of explosive force. The cost of enough C4 to make that explosion turns out to be $170,000. You can do the math. C4 has, I believe it's 1.59. 1 pound of C4 is 1.59 pounds of TNT in explosive force. C4 costs about $13 a pound in bulk on the open market. When you do all of that math, it actually comes right out to $170,000. So that's just the explosive. Then people came out and said, oh no, the housing costs like $1 million or $800,000, and then when they're ready, they fill it. But the Air Force will not release what the total program cost is or what the cost of one of these things actually is. So what you have is you've got people arguing back and forth about cost and about price. That's a distraction from the real story. The real story is this. This is the official story according to Wikipedia. On 13th of April 2017, a MOAB was dropped on an Isil Khorasan cave complex in Achin district, Nangarhar province, Afghanistan. It was the first operational use of the bomb. 2 days later, an Afghan army spokesman said the strike killed 94 ISIS-K militants, including 4 commanders. Now, this ISIS-K. We're going to do a little bit of a dive into that. Not a super deep dive because it doesn't require that. But you were told that ISIS tunnels were bombed. ISIS stands for Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. Now, Raqqa, the headquarters of ISIS, the supposed headquarters of ISIS, is about 2,500 miles and 3 countries away from where this bomb was dropped, essentially on the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. And who built these tunnels, these ISIS tunnels? Do we have this WikiLeaks? This is a tweet from WikiLeaks, and I've gone ahead and verified this. This is about the place that this was dropped is very, very near to Tora Bora. It's about within 20 miles. It's in the same province. It's just in a little bit of the neighboring district near Tora Bora. You may remember that name because in 2001, when the U.S. went in and dropped daisy cutter bombs trying to kill Osama bin Laden, he was supposedly in caves, they said, in Tora Bora. Now, these caves are a CIA-financed complex that was built for the Mujahideen by bin Laden's father's company. Now, you may remember, bin Laden is from the largest construction family in Arabia, bin Laden Construction, the Saudi bin Laden Group. It's one of the most prosperous construction companies in Saudi Arabia and throughout the Persian Gulf. According to one frequently told story, bin Laden would drive one of the bulldozers himself across the precipice mountain peaks, constructing defensive tunnels and storage depots. And this was financed by the CIA. So they went, they supposedly blew up tunnels in Tora Bora. I guess some were still existing in the Achin province, just a couple dozen miles away. Supposedly there were ISIS there. But let's talk about who this ISIS is, because that's a very important part of this too. They said ISIS or ISIL Khorasan, ISIL-K. We have this ISIL-K thing. So this is from Tracking Terrorism. ISIS-K is an active group formed circa 2014. ISIS Khorasan is the name for Afghanistan, is the provincial division of the Islamic State designated for the nations of Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, encompassed under a single jurisdictional authority, Wilayat Khorasan. Supported by local groups, this group has asserted its presence namely in Afghanistan officially since January 2015. However, efforts towards this were seen as early as May 2014. These efforts are characterized by attacks against Afghan military personnel, sectarian minorities, and the killing of Taliban operatives. In Pakistan, the group has gained an affiliate in Jundullah and support from Lashkar-e-Jhangvi, both of which often target sectarian and religious minorities. Additionally, IS Khorasan has received allegiance from the Islamic movement of Uzbekistan, which split summer 2016 over the IS pledge. The Tariq-Ghadar group links the Tariq-e-Taliban Islami Pakistan and ISK. Its origins stem from the Pakistani Taliban. So, this is a group that is relatively new, but what's happening in these situations is, just like what you had with Al-Qaeda, is you have these Islamic groups that pop up. And in an attempt to draw, it's basically like a gang situation, right? To where you have, let's say, Bloods and Crips, and you may have Bloods, a blood-affiliated gang in Los Angeles and a blood-affiliated gang in St. Louis. They don't know each other. They don't talk to each other. There isn't some hierarchy of command, but they fly the colors. They use the bandana, which on the street is called a flag. There's not a hierarchy, and that's what essentially these groups are doing. These guys broke away from the Taliban. They're not Arabic. They broke away from the Taliban, and then they pledged allegiance to ISIS. Now, what does this do? This allows you to have some cachet so that when you are trying to recruit outsiders, mujahideen, to come and fight with you, young men from all over the world who are going to choose, well, where am I going to go fight? And who am I going to go fight with? The Taliban is a Afghan-specific Pashtun group with a specific culture. They are a nationalist group. They don't have designs besides taking over Afghanistan and portions of Pakistan for their national group. ISIS, on the other hand, is a mujahideen group that will accept people from all over. They don't control very much territory in Afghanistan. Are these guys really ISIS? Well, they certainly are not the ISIS that are being bombed in Syria. They certainly are not the ISIS that we have talked about up till now. Do we have this New York Times situation here talking about just exactly how this new version of ISIS came up, in similar to how Al-Qaeda came up. So this is from the New York Times. This is from December of 2016. Afghanistan's security crisis is fueling new opportunities for Al-Qaeda, the Islamic State, and other extremist groups, Afghan and American officials say, voicing concerns that the original American mission in the country, removing its use as a terrorist haven, is at risk. As intense Taliban offensives have taken large portions of territory out of the Afghan government's hands, those spaces have become the stage for a resurgence of regional and international militant groups. That is despite the extended presence of nearly 10,000 American troops in the country, tasked with performing counterterrorism operations and supporting the Afghan forces who are bearing the brunt of the fighting. General Joseph L. Vogel, the chief of the United States Central Command, said the Afghan government now controls only about 60% of the country. The Taliban hold sway over about 10%, and the remainder is contested. So that means that about 30% of the country is contested. Which group or groups fill those voids of increasing ungoverned territory in Afghanistan is something we'll have to contend with, he said. So let's take a look here at Wikipedia, the entry for ISIS-K, at this ISIS Khorasan. Now here's... I don't know what this is. Christian, jump off this, because I do want to mention something. I don't know what this is exactly, but I don't know when Wikipedia became a bad information source, especially for things like this, where it's cited continuously. Any claim is cited and then backed up by a further article. That's what has to happen on Wikipedia, especially on these. It's so weird that as I've discussed things with people and pointed them to Wikipedia pages, that if they have an argument, they argue, oh, Wikipedia. Like, where is your better, I mean, there's like 80 articles linked to this. Where is your better source? Like, I want to know, where are you getting your information? Oh, you can't trust Wikipedia. Well, do you have something? Show me some source that you have besides your opinion. So let's go back to this Wikipedia. Because, again, you can see every single time that there's a little number next to it, that is an outside source. That's usually either a government source from some government, or it's going to be a news source. It's going to be a credible source. And as you look at this thing, you can just count them off. Like some sentences have 3 sources after them. So it's triple sort of authenticated. So this is from Wikipedia. ISIL announced the group's formation in January 2015 and appointed former Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan militant Hafiz Saeed Khan as its leader, with former Afghan Taliban commander Abdul Rauf Alisa appointed as deputy leader. Alisa was killed in a U.S. drone strike in February 2015, while Khan was killed in a U.S. airstrike in July 2016. Its current leader is unknown. So you look at its opponents, you can kind of see it there. So its state opponents is Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, and the United States. You look at its non-state opponents, Taliban and Tehreek-e-Taliban, which is basically Taliban in Pakistan. So these guys are waging an internal war. Now remember, the United States, come on, you can jump back, Christian. Actually, you can go to both of us. So Christian, what we have here is a situation where the United States went into Afghanistan, started fighting the Taliban, right? Mm-hmm. That's supposedly who the main enemy in Afghanistan is, right, is the Taliban. Mm-hmm. This group is a breakaway is people who broke away from the Taliban and the Pakistani Taliban because probably internal arguments, whatever.
Yeah.
Looking for, it's like, you know, this guy breaks away from the Crips, and so he goes out looking for, okay, well, who could I align my gang with now? Because that's what they are. They're armed gangs.
Or in jobs, a manager gets fired
Sure.
from a job and then brings all his employees to another
to a
place.
competitor.
Right.
Right? So, we're fighting the Taliban. Not we. The United States military is fighting the Taliban. These guys break away from the Taliban. They start fighting the Taliban.
Mm-hmm.
They reach out and they say, well, we support ISIS. And of course ISIS is like, all right, I'll make you the provincial governor. It's just what? It does nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't send troops. They don't send anything.
Yeah.
These guys are doing this shit on their own, right? Oh, now these guys become ISIS? But they're fighting the Taliban. They're fighting the enemy that the United States government is over there fighting. So, because what you have is you have a factional war.
Right.
You have all of these groups. But this ISIS-K, while they're fighting a civil war, they are doing, you could see their, if you go to the Wikipedia page, you can see the bombing attacks that they've done. They have not done anything outside of that country. They do not want to do anything outside of that country. They want to take over, they have the same mindset as the Taliban. They want to take over territory. They're Afghans, they're Pakistanis, they want to take over territory in their own country and control it. That's what they want to do. Why are we dropping bombs, giant bombs on these guys and pretending like they're ISIS? Like, let's take a look at the leader. I mean, you could see this guy is a militant. This is the Khan bio. So, they have reported him dead twice already, just like they did Osama bin. They report all of these guys dead all the time, and they're not. So, on 12th July 2015, the Afghan intelligence agency, the National Directorate of Security, claimed that Saeed was killed in a strike carried out by U.S.-led coalition forces in coordination with intelligence provided by the spy agency, though the United States never confirmed such an operation. The Islamic State rejected the claim, but the strike did kill Shahidullah Shahid and Gul Zaman, according to senior IS leader Abdul Rahim Muslim Dost. Then, on 12th August 2016, the United States announced that Hafiz Saeed Khan was killed in a U.S. airstrike in Achin district, same district, of Afghanistan's Nangarhar province. There was no immediate response from the group itself, and it is unknown who will succeed him. So maybe this dude wasn't dead. Like, maybe... Yeah. And then... You're bombing, you don't even know who the leader of this group is, but they're so important that you're going to go and send a Moab to drop on them? Because that's not what this is about. That's not what this is about. What this is about is you've got a very, very weak and very, very susceptible president in office. Now, all presidents are motivated by their ego, but this guy's ego is really simple and really base. And he is letting the generals call the shots. And a general, look, generals are just operating from their own self-interest.
Yeah.
The way that you move up as a general, the way that you make a name for yourself, put it like this. We've had generals who became presidents. Ulysses S. Grant was one. Eisenhower was one. What do those two have in common? They both were the winners, the generals, during a win of a major war. Ulysses S. Grant won the Civil War. General Eisenhower won World War II, basically. And that's how you move from highest level general into political power.
Yeah.
You got to win a war. So you got to think, these guys are obviously climbers. They're political climbers. You don't reach a 4 or 5 star general without being a very ambitious individual.
Right.
How do you move forward from there? You got to win a war. Well, you can't win a war if you don't start a war.
Exactly.
And nobody's going to start a war against us. And the U.S. is not just going to go to war on the U.S. The American people are not going to support a war unless they're scared. So you got to lie us into war. You have to lie us into war. And they are telling this guy, I see it. It makes so much sense. He wants to do these deals, right? That's his motivation. They're looking and they're like, okay. And these guys are way better at the laws of power than fucking Donald Trump.
Yeah.
5-star general? This guy has maneuvered his way past killers his entire career. Killers, people who enjoy killing people. These guys have maneuvered to the top of that heap.
Wow.
Right?
It's crazy.
When you got to think about that.
Yeah, that's
They're in charge of killers. Donald Trump has been in charge of house cleaning, housekeeping, maids, and front desk clerks. Seriously, dude.
yeah.
Like, let's be real. That's who he orders around. Golf pros.
Yeah.
These guys order around straight up killers. People who will cut people's heads off and bathe in their blood. Like, seriously. Will snap your neck like a twig.
Yeah.
That's who these guys order around. You don't think they can outmaneuver Donald Trump into starting a war? And so they're telling him, look, no. You have to show a show of force. You got to demonstrate. If you want to do the deal, you got to demonstrate. You got to have leverage. Let us do this over here, and here's how you sell it. Do this over here, and here's how you sell it. Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. That'll work. Because you notice that they keep saying on all these things, it'll send a message to North Korea. It'll send a message to North Korea.
Yeah,
Send a message to North Korea.
A
even-
message of strength.
Right. It's not even about North Korea. It's about China. You know, the question is, why would the U.S. want North Korea?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. at all.
Really? Really? What two countries does North Korea... Well, what, besides South Korea, on its northern borders, what two countries does North Korea border? China and Russia.
Yeah.
It borders both China and Russia.
Well, the only thing I could think of too was it's one of the 3 countries that don't have a central bank.
Central bank. Huge. And look at how prosperous South Korea is and how much money that central bank is making, right? To be able to have a country where you've got the might of South Korea economically and then a military force sitting on the border of China and Russia that's basically a full blast client state. That's a powerful thing to have.
Right.
But Donald Trump's not even thinking that. He wants to do deals with China. But he's getting sucked into a war because he doesn't fucking know what he's doing.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what he's doing. He thinks he thinks this is going to help him do deals with Russia. He thinks this is going to help him do deals with China. No, man, you're going to start a fucking war. When the war starts, there's no goddamn deals. There's no deals. And these generals are rolling along. They're putting their people in place. And it's not some globalists. It's not the elite. It's not the Jews like everybody's out. It's the Jews.
Yeah.
It's not the fucking Jews. It's people acting out of their own self-interest. If you give, what do they say? To a hammer, everything is a nail.
Yeah.
That's it. To a general, the answer to every problem is war.
Winning a war.
Fighting a war and winning a war. That's the answer to every fucking problem. Just like to a businessman, to Donald Trump, the answer to every problem is a business deal.
Yep.
But when you have a bunch of powerful people with competing interests, and people in that mix who don't understand, like those generals understand how politics works, but Donald Trump doesn't understand how the military works. Not at that level.
Yeah, very
Now,
interesting.
Hillary Clinton would have already taken us to war because that was her plan as well. She was she would have been cool with that. Because that's part of that plan, right? Military-industrial complex, like that's totally fine. Oil companies, the whole nine.
Yeah.
The other thing is he's got a Secretary of State that's an oil man. And shares in all the oil companies went straight up. They go up as soon as there's destabilization in the Middle East. Like, you got these competing interests, and you've got a dude who basically, while he may actually want to do the things he said on the campaign trail, He's out of his league. It's good in some ways, but it's very bad when the generals are in control, when the generals are not able to be sidelined. Very, very dangerous. And that's, we've got a lot of people in this country who are like, yeah, we're fighting ISIS. We got to get out there. We got to get ISIS. We got to, how could you be upset? We're fighting them. We're fighting them over there. We got to eliminate ISIS. It's like, why?
Yeah.
Really? Do we? Why? Like, when was the last ISIS attack in Argentina? When was the last ISIS attack in Chile? When was the last ISIS attack in fucking in Australia? And they actually have NATO troops in places. But I'm like, the reason they're attacking us is because we are there. That's the one and only reason. And the people that they're attacking are the people who are fucking there. That's it. That's it. It's not like you're just exacerbating the situation. You're making the situation worse.
Yep.
And ISIS, Al-Qaeda, they were creations of the U.S. anyway. Go watch Charlie Wilson's War. Great example. I mean, they made it's damn near a comedy.
Yeah.
It's damn near a comedy. It's so absurd. It really is mostly a comedy. It's Tom Hanks and Julia Roberts, for crying out loud. About how we created Al-Qaeda. How the U.S. created Al-Qaeda to the tune of $1 billion. When you ask the state to solve your problems, shit goes wrong. That brings us to our second story. Because this week we had the state being asked to solve a problem. United being asked, and I'm sure that everybody has seen this video by now, the Asian doctor being dragged off the United flight because they had been overbooked. So the situation was, United flight is overbooked. This is typical. Anybody who flies has experienced this. I've experienced this myself. They ask for volunteers. They say, we'll give you, flight credits and hotel stay, one-night hotel stay, and sometimes they'll even offer cash. And so the first time they offered $400 cash. Nobody took it. Then they offered $800 cash. Like 3 people took it. Then they said, look, if no one else takes this, we're going to pick people at random, and then you're just going to have to come off. So we have both of the before and the after on this. So let's take a look at the before. Oh, it's fine. Let it play. Let it play.
Hold on a minute. Hold on, Daniel. I won't go. I'm physician, have to work tomorrow 8 o'clock. So am I. Yeah. You can talk to my original today. They want to remove me from now. Her name is Daniel Hill. So I make a lawsuit against United Airlines. No, I'm not going. I am not going. Well, you can track me down. I won't go. I'm not going. I stay right there. They try to use the force. Yeah, that's right.
I'll kind of narrate this because it might be hard to understand this guy, his English. Basically, he's saying he's not going, and they're saying they're going to drag him off. At this point, it's police officers that are doing this. So what you have is this doctor gets chosen. Turns out to be a doctor. I think he's Vietnamese of Chinese ancestry, and he gets chosen randomly. They send in police officers. He says he's not going to go. And then I'm sure that you've seen the aftermath, but we'll just, for those who maybe have been living under a rock and haven't seen it, here's the after.
Pilots drive, Delora? Can't they rent a car for the pilots and have them drive? No! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! No! My guys, my God! What are you doing? No, this is wrong. Oh my God! Look at what you did to him! Oh my God! Pilots drive, Delora?
What is that? Now, go ahead and bring me back. So, basically, what's interesting is when you first see that video, it's a key little portion right there, where there's a woman who's saying, because they needed these seats for pilots, right? They had pilots who needed to be in another city, who needed to be in Louisville, you could hear, that needed to be on for flights the next day. And the woman says, can't the pilots just drive to Louisville? Can't they rent a car and drive these pilots to Louisville? This is a good question. There's also another question. And we'll get into that about what are the alternatives. But this is what happens when you ask the state to solve your problems. Because what ended up occurring is they say that now after this, after the bad press, never mind the lawsuit that's about to come, the stocks fell, all of this, that the valuation of the company, of United as a company, has dropped $1 billion, they said. $1 billion. I want you to consider this, though. They only offered $800 cash for someone to get up. What if they had just offered $1,000? That would have only been $200 more. Or $1,500. Or $2,000. Or $3,000. Like, would it, in hindsight, have been worth $2,200? I guarantee you, if they would have offered $3,000, somebody would have got the fuck up. Somebody would have got up and took that $3,000 cash. I know I sure as hell would have. I've done it before. I've been one of the people who's gotten cash and a hotel night. And I think it was $800. But see, they were only authorized to offer $800. And after $800, they asked the state to solve their problem. So you think, you could have been $1 billion. It would have been cheaper for them to offer $1 million for someone to get off. Think about that. That's when you don't have the state as an option, and it's just the free market. You can't use violent force. You have to negotiate. You have to get people to voluntarily do things. And that means you pay a little more money. But how much fucking cheaper is it? In the long run, it's so much less expensive. This is going to turn out to be horrible for United. I had got stranded week before last when Delta had all of their cancellations because of a storm in Atlanta. My flight got canceled. I ended up having to stay 2 extra days, getting a flight on another airline that cost me like $1,000 one way from New York back to Vegas. Horrible situation. Delta didn't offer me any money back, but after this now, I almost wish that it would have been, that the chronology would have been reversed, because Delta figured this shit out. We got this 10K story. This is from CNN Money. Delta will now pay you up to $10,000 to give up your seat on overbooked flights. Delta customers can now be offered nearly $10,000 for giving up their seats on overbooked flights. A company spokesperson confirmed to CNN Money that supervisors were previously only able to offer up to $1,350, but Delta notified them on Friday that they'll now be able to offer up to $9,950 in compensation. Gate agents are also now authorized to offer more as well, $2,000 up from $800. That's how it works in the free market. People ask, well, who will figure these things out in the free market? That's it. Delta figured it out. Delta now realizes, oh, wait, using the state to solve our problems, that's really fucking stupid. Like, we could, like, offer people, like, $10,000 a seat to get up, and it would still be cheaper than making that call and demanding violent coercion. I want you to think about when you think about our entire society and all of the places where we ask the state to solve our problems. This is a microcosm. In every single one of those situations, it's the same thing. What it costs you in the long run is so much more. Think about it like this. Let's take these wars, Afghanistan and Iraq, that we had. They've cost what? Estimates are between $2 trillion and $10 trillion, because the Pentagon, as of last year, couldn't find $6.5 trillion. couldn't find $6.5 trillion, but they say that those two wars cost only $2 trillion. Now, do you think that we could have possibly, instead of invading Afghanistan, the fucking Taliban would have took like 2 camels and maybe a gift card to Quiznos? You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't have shit. Do you think we could have maybe just given the Taliban, like, let's say $100 million, and let's say we give Saddam $1 billion? That's a lot less. That's like $1.1 billion. That's a whole hell of a lot less than $2 trillion to get a better result, because we're still fucking in Iraq. And now we got to bomb ISIS because we created a situation for ISIS. Saddam wouldn't have allowed ISIS. Saddam was in power for decades. There were no terrorists in Iraq. The Taliban had eliminated poppy production. They had knocked down the world's opium production, like cut it in half or more, because they're anti-drug. Now we've got a heroin epidemic in this country. No, okay, think about that. It's very, very important. We went to war, knocked out the people who were knocking down opium production, and curiously, all of a sudden, we get an opiate problem. We enable greater opium production in the world, and we get an opiate problem. You ask the state to solve your problems, it becomes more expensive. That was another thing that happened today. Because of our opiate problem, I want you to think about this. Now, are you going to ask the state to solve your opiate problem? Because my favorite meme, and let me see. Yeah, we're almost ready for MEAR. My favorite meme of this week was Vanilla ISIS. We got this Vanilla ISIS? When you think about the state, you think about we're bombing ISIS. I want you to look at these 2 pictures. Top one's ISIS, bottom one's Vanilla ISIS. These are real pictures. These are real propaganda videos. Do you see any similarities? When you think that the state is really different, that your state, your county government, that's the state, is really all that different from Islamic State, and that the state that you're asking to destroy Islamic State is really better or different than Islamic State? You know what the difference between Islamic State in Iraq and Syria and these Vanilla ISIS characters, which is the Lake County Sheriff, is? Because if you live in Lake County, Vanilla ISIS is actually messing with you. Islamic State in Iraq and Syria isn't. So for the people in Lake County, let's show them this Lake County video.
I'm Lake County Sheriff Peyton Grinnell. Over the last month or so, I've had several phone calls from citizens in this county concerned about the number of overdoses related to heroin. I want our citizens to know that I am aware of this serious issue. I am asking our residents to please call and let us know if you know of a location that this poison is being pushed out to our streets. You can remain anonymous. To the dealers that are pushing this poison, I have a message for you. We're coming for you. As a matter of fact, our undercover agents have already bought heroin from many of you. We are simply awaiting the arrest warrants to be finalized. So, to the dealers I say, enjoy looking over your shoulder, constantly wondering if today's the day. We come for you. Enjoy trying to sleep tonight, wondering if tonight's the night our SWAT team blows your front door off the hinges. We are coming for you. If our agents can show the nexus between you, the pusher of poison, and the person that overdoses and dies, we will charge you with murder. We are coming for you. Run.
So here you go. Bunch of guys dressed as terrorists saying that they're going to solve your problem. You going to let the state solve this problem? The state, by having the Afghanistan war, created an influx of opium into the international market. The U.S. ended up with a massive opiate problem. It's not a coincidence. The state created the problem. Are you going to allow the state to solve the problem? You don't like ISIS, but you like vanilla ISIS. Just because they speak your language and look a little more like you, it doesn't mean that they don't have the exact same intentions as the people who speak a different language and look like the people that they're terrorizing. So we're going to come back. We're going to talk about solutions, and we're going to talk about spreading a culture of peace and not war. What that looks like, how beautiful that is. We're going to discuss that with our guest, one of my favorite artists, MEAR One, and we'll be back after the break to do just that. Welcome back to the Vin Armani Show. We are streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Vin Armani, also on Twitter and Periscope. At Vin Armani is my handle, and of course we are streaming live on the Facebook page of our content partner, Activist Post. That's facebook.com/Activist Post. Before we get into this interview, just wanted to let you all know that we have extended our founders discount of our newsletter, Counter Markets. Trends and strategies for maximum freedom. So our second issue is great. It's got great traction. People are enjoying it. It's about 60 pages long, super beefy. In this issue, we have a really interesting article about co-living. This is a new trend. Some people have heard of co-working. It's almost like a really kick-ass dorm environment, particularly young people in urban areas. It's very expensive, for instance, to live in Manhattan, but in this situation you can have like a fully kitted out location. You know, it's kind of like bunk bed situations, but it's badass. All a really amazing setup, amazing kitchens. Some of these places are serving food. Very, very cool concept. I think if I was younger, in my younger days, this is something that definitely would have been appealing to me. That's something that you should definitely check out. We have a best place to buy silver online. We are talking to Curtis Stone, who we've had on this show. We've got a profile of him as an urban gardener, and my article in there is called Shades of Gray Markets. This month I'm talking about how government overreach creates great gray market opportunities, and I use the history of taxi cabs and the relationship with Uber, the emergence of Uber in 3 cities, New York, Las Vegas, our home, of course, and Austin, Texas, to show how it's really the government itself in overreaching has created these gray market opportunities for Uber. And I think that leads us into our guest, one of my favorite artists, MEAR One. MEAR One, we have MEAR? Christian? Go ahead and bring him on. MEAR One has been at the forefront of LA's graffiti and mural culture for nearly 3 decades. He's famous for having pioneered the Melrose graffiti art movement in the late 80s and is considered by many to be LA's most prolific public muralist. Early on in his career, MEAR gained his recognition for building the bridge between graffiti art and fine art. He was the first graffiti artist to exhibit at the infamous O1 Gallery on Melrose, as well as 33 1/3 Gallery in Silverlake, where Banksy would later debut his first North American show. MEAR One's work was part of the landmark Art in the Streets 2011 exhibit at the Los Angeles Museum of Contemporary Art, which I checked out, which was awesome. He's perhaps best known for constructing powerful narratives juxtaposing philosophy, ancient mythology, and modern politics to inspire and evolve consciousness. MEAR One, welcome to the Vin Armani Show.
Thank you. What's up?
Hey man, it is great to have you on. I have been a fan for a very, very long time. I was a subscriber to Herb Magazine, or URB. You had the back inside cover, right? Since like 1999, something like that, right?
Right? Yeah, I missed those days. That was fun.
So but of course, your art is coming from Los Angeles. Your art it's ubiquitous, right? You've been in the game for a long time, and we met at Anarchapulco, got a chance to sit down and talk over a few drinks. It was a great time. I had a great time. You did some amazing work that was kind of the centerpiece there. We got a chance to talk. You are just, although it's not a move from your personal philosophy and your politics, which you've certainly put out in your art in terms of being for peace and sustainability and love and evolved consciousness, but you're starting to embrace the idea that, hey, this anarchist thing, this kind of represents what it is that I'm all about. I wanted to talk with you just a little bit about. We'll get into your background of work, but how did you come to sort of this movement? How did you wind up at Anarchapulco? Maybe that's a good place to start.
I guess just watching people I subscribe to on YouTube in the mornings, like my morning newspaper. Looking for an alternative. We're polarized. We have like this right-left perspective, and being a graffiti artist, I've always been kind of an outlier and a bit of an outcast of society. So I'm always looking for a third or a fourth or a fifth option, an alternative, and a lot of what we get here is just this consistent, pre-programmed message that we kind of fit our lives into, and it just Anarchapulco seemed like a real breath of fresh air as it was. So yeah,
I want to talk with you a little bit about being an agorist myself. I think that graffiti artists are probably the original agorists in terms of in short, it's more like it's better to beg forgiveness than to ask permission. But you obviously now have,
or just keep running,
right? Well, what I want to talk with you about is the difference between vandalism and art, because there are certainly, I think, people who get into I wouldn't even say graffiti. Those guys are more like taggers, right? But who get into the idea of painting on public spaces as a way to diminish the value or to make a mark in a sort of aggressive way. And then there are people whose mindset is to take something that is sort of being unused or that is not beautiful and to turn it into something beautiful. I want to ask you, when you first started out, what was your intention with this thing the first time that you went out with some spray cans? Like, where were you at? And now, as a statesman of the art form, as somebody who everybody looks up to in the art world, how has your consciousness evolved as having that as a starting point?
Well, I think for me and most of my Angelino brothers and sisters, and what I know of most of graffiti writers and taggers in the world, it starts out with a dissatisfied view on the school you're in, the parental relationship you're having to conform to, the legal reality we all live in. I don't know, as a kid, I never understood lines. I never understood getting in line to get my school lunch. I never understood this idea of lining up and obeying and assuming an order that's invisible, that doesn't really matter. And so I think a lot of it also stems from tagging, breaking the law, scribing your name on a bus that you're sort of feeling oppressed by, the filth of the city, the danger of weirdos on the bus and gang fights, the danger of so many things in our culture, in our city that we raise our kids in. So it's kind of a dangerous byproduct that form from it. And by breaking the law and taking things into your own hand and being responsible for what you do, literally with your peers, it starts to form a new understanding of the world. And my art kind of comes from the place of self-permission. You know, we don't give ourselves permission. Nobody gives us permission to do anything we want. We have permission to do specific things. Go to the grocery store, put gasoline in your car, get a job, pay your taxes, die. And so the street art, graffiti art mentality is kind of a do-it-yourself, similar to the anarchist, go and get what you need and make the best of your life philosophy. And I've been sticking to that since the 80s. You know.
Well, when did the shift happen for you from you know, sort of manifesting this and pushing out anger and as you're describing to the level of introspection that you clearly have with your art? When did that shift happen? When you, because it seems like it is a shift from this external pushing out into the world to going internal and then, you know, sort of manifesting that. When did that shift happen? At what point? What changed?
As soon as I got out of high school. High school was like this violent place for me. I had guns pulled on me every day during nutrition and lunch. You would be dealing with fist fights. The whole school would surround the fist fight. Someone would get pulverized. Someone would come out on top. Someone came out on top, might not even go to that school, hop in the fence and fighting. And so this culture of violence was already kind of bred into a lot of us inner city school kids. I couldn't wait to get out of school. I couldn't wait to get my life started as a graffiti artist because it meant that I was finally in control. And that process of, you know, dropping acid and getting into nature, living my daily life as I wanted, opposed to this line, this order, this consistent, repeated, repetitive programming that I was recognizing as a real negative in my life. That spawned a lot of beautiful ideas. Getting out of the city. I mean, for most of us kids that grew up in the city that are now men and women, and for kids that are currently growing up in the cities, Detroit, Chicago, you know, Manhattan, the Bronx, South Los Angeles, all over the place, different cities across the United States, you know, through Nevada to Tennessee. It's a hard life for a great deal of people that are forgotten and unheard of and swept under the carpet. They go without health insurance. They go without car insurance. They don't even have license. They somehow work. They struggle. And, you know, I think graffiti art is the voice of the dissatisfied soul. It comes from a place of recognizing a problem and no longer wanting to associate with it, but yet call it out, combat it, vandalize it, you know, scar it. You know, I think graffiti is a Latin word which means to scribe, and, you know, the Romans and the Greeks and the Egyptians, everyone was responsible for this. When they'd invade someone's nation, they would take metal and pound their scribes into the new booty, the new pirate's treasure, you know? And so it's part of our process, and us graffiti writers, I feel, figured out a positive way of doing that, which was to turn it against the system.
I want to talk about that because it seems like for certainly for the graffiti writers that I know, that the evolution seems to be, and I don't know if you experienced this as well. I think knowing your work a little bit and seeing and watching it evolve over the decades, I get a sense of this, that you know, early on, like as you say, turning it against the system, it does seem like early on in a life of a graffiti writer that it really is a that manifestation of the competition with other artists tends to be the focus, and then at some certain point, you obviously, someone like you reach a point where there really isn't anybody who can really compete with you because you've carved out your own lane. What do you say to the people who are young artists who are really approaching the game as whether that's a visual artist, whether that's a musician, whether that's somebody doing a podcast where their goal is to compete with the other people in their space? What would you say to them about finding their own voice? How did you find yours? Were you in that space where it was about I need to be the best in this field? How did you find your own voice to where it became about you?
Well, graffiti art's really competitive, especially for kids freshly getting out of high school and early college. It's it's almost in a sense like throughout junior high school and college, or junior high and high, you should have laid down enough groundwork to have gotten a reputation, and these reputations become super egostatic. We start believing more in like that we are the best opposed to the message. And I think around 1993, after I had gotten out of high school, my best friend Skate One died. Mm-hmm. He was painting trains in the valley, rocking his name and letters and graffiti art, whatnot, what we see on trains around the country. And he got hit by an Amtrak and it killed him. Made me take my art form much deeper. I realized you could die for this art, and some people do. Made me take my whole art form a lot more serious, and it caused me to get out of the egostatic place and really get into figuring out who am I and what am I doing here, and how can when I'm dying and I look back, like, am I happy with what I did of my life? Was I a lazy stoner? Was I a degenerate of society? Was I caught up chasing things that were irrelevant? Was I bad to people? All these things started coming into play, and I've really strived for this definition that I can live with and believe in, something that fuels the painting. So I've come to my own plateau in myself, and there's more to go. That's the real realization of evolving out of who you were, is that you're never gonna really settle. You're always going to reach for another higher level, and to me, that's the ultimate goal of an artist, is to keep going. Not to settle into too much comfort and too much definition, to remain just beyond people's, outside of people's box.
So this is something that I think separates you in terms of the political. Do you if we use the term street art, is that offensive to you? Do you count yourself as a street? I know you have some particular thoughts about that. But.
Yeah, there's real social language, and then there's underground language. Right. From the social current state of things. Yeah, I'm a street artist, and that's right. What everyone understands. But from the historic state, and from the underground state, I'm a graffiti artist, right. And that's different. We graffiti writers, most of us were high school dropouts, very little art school education. I had mine, but most of us let go of all that to enter a culture that was a lifestyle, that was 24/7. It wasn't a weekend warrior. It wasn't when you could make time for it. It was full time, and it became our entire life. Now, the street art scene, I always looked at them as art school students that were inspired by graffiti art. Mm-hmm. And so, it's the evolution of the art form. That's how powerful graffiti art's been, since the Renaissance until, the 60s or 70s, 1960s or 70s. I feel like there was an incredible flood of beautiful art, just in my opinion, just because I'm an opinionated artist, beautiful flood of art, and the early American painters that painted the Southwest and all these landscapes, incredible, which evolved into the Norman Rockwells you know, just really great painting, Maxfield Parrish, but that ended up somewhere in the 60s, 50s, 70s as an orange canvas with a white dot in the corner.
Right.
And it ended up with like crumpled trash with urine all over it in an encapsulated sealed vacuum tube or something, or like someone shit in a jar.
Right.
And people were literally calling this fine art, and it was almost as if rich kids got so high on themselves that they said, I'm an artist too, and I can afford to do this. I can pay for the magazine press, I can buy the gallery, I can get my shit in there, literally. And I think it became so boring. That's where graffiti art spawned from. It went to the ghetto. It went to the kids on the street that no one gave a fuck about. They were the degenerates, the welfare victims, the children of crackheads and heroin addicts, gangbangers, you know, just losers. And these kids showed that the human spirit was more powerful than that. They created an entire culture, hip-hop, music, dance, art, culture, and you know, it's still thriving today. People are still benefiting off of the back of the underground beast that was beautiful, and it's kind of sold out now. So it's reached its plateau, and it needs to grow again. And so that's why I don't remain in a box. I'm not a graffiti artist per se only. I am also a street artist, but I'm more than that. You know, I'm a surrealist. You know, I can be an abstract artist. I can evolve into a, you know, a revolutionary, psychedelic, free thinker. You know, like I don't really have a term that I define myself as. I'm definitely of the underground, and I'm an outlier. I like to see myself that way. I don't really fit in. I refuse to fit in. I'm an anomaly, I guess. And there's a few of us out there. You know, you look around the world, wherever you find dope art that speaks to you, that doesn't really fit into a box, there's something in common with that. And usually that person is they're free from people's terminology and their definition, which is kind of an end to your career, quite honestly.
To be put in that box, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to just so people can get an idea. I've got some examples, some murals in particular. If maybe because I think it is important, especially with your work as of late. The themes that you're getting into are powerful, and like you say, you are definitely I think a surrealist for sure. Your work is very dreamlike, and I think that's what makes it so strong. Is that it's these. It feels like a dream, and the archetypes are just stacked on top of each other in a way that you can't even pull it apart, but it hits you like a ton of bricks. Do you have these pieces, Christian? Maybe if you could talk about some of these pieces.
Yeah, this is a mural I painted in Culver City, in Los Angeles, during the time that we were voting whether to have GMO labeling on our packaging for our food. And I couldn't believe how stupid Californians could be that we voted no against it, but or that we voted for. We voted with the system. I forgot how it went exactly, but I was trying to paint a mural that showed how toxic our future is if we continue to obey this system, and that we could potentially cultivate a loving, agricultural-based renewable resource-driven reality, and care for our earth and be custodians of this incredible place instead of turning it into this technological hell.
It's powerful, and like I say, powerful message that just it's clear within the first glance. Just it hits you dead between the eyes. Christian, we got this next one here. Oh well, yeah, I know our audience will love this one.
Yeah, man, you know, what is it? Greatest American Heroes, right there.
We got Snowden and Manning and Assange. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And then, you know, the sleeping society with the one guy that unplugs, showing the example, you know, that there is hope out there. Yeah, this is up in Silverlake in my neighborhood at the Silverlake Junction. It's a super popular intersection. The mural is no longer there. I've got a new one now with a yogi, a holy man on it. But yeah, this was a really was a good time. It was right when everything was happening in the media, and it was in everyone's face, and I kind of have been known for that.
Love it. You got the next one here, Christian. This is similar to the one that's behind you right now.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about this piece a little bit.
Yeah, I was heading out to London to do an art festival in the streets, and I had time from Bristol to pop over to London and stay with who is now my current girlfriend. She was living out there at the time, and got some support from different people, and got this great wall that looked like a bomb had blown it up. And I loved it. I was so happy. I sketched this piece on the airplane on the way out there just with I was coming freshly out of the end of Occupy LA, or during it. What was it? Was it before or after? God, I can't remember it precisely. I want to say it was during the end of it, yeah. And this piece was really special to me because it kind of summed up in a kind of in a graphic way a metaphor that was a longer conversation. I wanted to figure out how to shorten it down to something real easy. Mm-hmm. And that central group of the men playing Monopoly on the backs of the working class under the icon of the Illuminati, with all the other stuff in the background. Mm-hmm. But that main central image really kind of encapsulated what I was talking about, which is they're playing a game on us, and we're stuck under it until we get up.
What do we got next here, Christian? Now, is this was yours, yeah?
Yeah. This is off of Melrose in the alleyways, where traditionally we have been painting murals on the backs of these buildings for like 30 years now. So it's a famous little area. It's one of the hubs of graffiti art in Los Angeles and free street muralage. So this is the Dalai Lama, and I did this. I believe back in 2008, I was trying to bring focus to the continual murdering and fighting that was taking place in Tibet and Lhasa with the Chinese army and the Tibetan monks.
Love it. What do we got? What we got next? How about this one?
Yeah, this is
powerful. That is just grabs you right away, man.
Yeah, I was. I call the piece "What About Tomorrow's Children." It's on a rooftop in Echo Park, facing traffic. It's really cool. It's a really nice, tall piece, about 20 feet tall, and it is about a girl, obviously in trouble, and it's their world, and it's like from the dead birds on the ground to the pollution and chemtrails to the just raping of the earth, all by this powerful elite. I call it "What About Tomorrow's Children?" So it's just kind of like what type of world are we creating, and even these rich bastard corporate scum, like it's their children that are going to be left behind and suffering. What about them?
The detail on the smoke and on those chemtrails, man, is really that's really something that you just don't see on art that size. And so when you're doing something like that, are you freehanding that? I mean, how are you doing? Do you lay out a grid for that? What do you do to get that much detail?
Yeah, no, it is freehand, and graffiti writers, we trained ourselves from 13, 14 years old to interpret space, how big it is, and growing up with with just all the great art of the museums in Los Angeles, to the Hollywood movie special effects, to comic books, to great bookstores of just all the artists in large scale print growing up. Just it was a huge library to pull from as a kid. So I mean, I've been doing this since a young age.
Do we have more? Do we have more on that? Go back to that slide. Do we have anything else? Go through there. Let's see. What do we got? Oh, this one. I know this this piece. This is great. What's interesting about this piece is actually, if you go to the next one, Christian, I realized I watched you paint this piece back in 2010, wow. And this is a picture I took of you. I was coming actually back from getting some food with my girlfriend who lived around the block at that time, and this was like summer of 2010, and I was like, oh my God, that's MEAR, and I realized right before this, I was like, holy crap! Yeah, I should pull this out. Like I say, I've been a fan for a long time. But
so cool.
Christian,
wow.
if you want to go back to, yes, if you could talk a little bit about this piece.
Yeah, man. I'm a lover of artists. I have my favorite artists, and Alphonse Mucha is one of them. He's I believe he was a Czech artist. He defined he was one of the pioneers and definers of the Art Nouveau movement, and his work is absolutely beautiful and elegant. His love of women and nature and their subtleties, and just the deep articulation of an artist before cameras or during the invention of the time of cameras, but the dedication of observation and association, how he brought elements together to form not just a beautiful picture, but it actually had function to it. It had it symbolized a unified society and a utopian state of mind, and it was very spiritual to me because it was done in a graphic way that was kind of hidden. You had to be subtly aware of esoteric knowledge to fully receive his message, you know.
And that's really a lot like your work. There's definitely some parallels there. Christian, if you want to jump back to us, thank you, Christian, for running those slides. What I wanted to ask you about, because you're talking about art before the time of cameras, and I think that we are now, as Christian and I started out talking about in the show, we're reaching a time when the camera is everything, and in some ways perhaps people who might actually be inclined to be artists of the type where they manifest their vision fully in the way that you do, instead of picking up a brush at a young age, pick up a camera and they get their sort of artistic release, as it were, through that. What I want to talk with you about is you are able to bring, because you are fully able to manifest your vision fully, and you're not constrained by what may be in the real world or how something may appear in the real world as you are with the camera. What do you think is being lost in terms of the soul of our culture and our ability to express complex concepts? Because clearly no photograph is going to be able to express concepts as complex as the ones that you express in your work. What is it that you, I mean, if you could just talk about what is it that you feel is that we are losing, or are we losing something? Is there a possible alternative with the camera, or does it just not translate?
The camera's alive. It's AI. I don't know. I think there's a double-edged sword there. One side definitely is as we've technologically improved, socially, the idea of retro is encrypted into everything, and it's the repetitious remanifestation of proven products, ideas, stories, visions, but they've already been proven to work, and so they are the limit of which we're allowed to reinterpret reality through. And that sucks big time, because I remember back in the tail end of the real underground hip-hop movement, you know, even groups like I love the Beastie Boys, one of my favorite groups ever, but I think that album Sabotage kind of, for me, symbolized a physical marker on MTV and our young little hip culture we had back then of things were going backwards into the blaxploitation era that worked already, and so let's use it again. And I noticed a lot of people doing that. In a lot of sense, rave was the reinvention of disco. Hip-hop was this really postmodern thing that was hard to put a cap on, because though it took albums and remixed them, it did it in such a postmodern way that it was, I felt, the last original subculture that we've had since then. Everything has been a remake. And so as artists go, I mean, you can just pick up a Time magazine now and scan the front cover and, you know, minimize your colors down to 4 or 5 colors, and then go and vectorize that and print it out, and even have a plotting machine cut it out for you. So it's completely removed the adventure of self-discovery. It's also removed by reinforcing this retroism. It's kind of put a buffer and a safety zone between the superconscious and the conscious. Like the person that's here right now developing art for what purpose, to say what to who, has no idea that there's a higher order and a higher language and a more sort of a powerful flow they could plug into and affect people on a different level. And people are so concerned with getting rich and famous and getting their public approval, their social media approval, that falls into that retro area of approving and supporting people that are proven to already have success. And if you look like someone who already succeeded, then you'll continue to succeed. But if you come with original, unique, individual, you know, postmodern or neo-visionary type of, you know, amplitude, you're going to get shut down, or you're going to be pushed to the side, which is, you know, which is good in some sense too. I guess this is what's going to spawn the new, is the suppression of something so great and powerful and new and original. So that's kind of like where I pull my inspiration from. And I noticed that there's less and less of us that do that. There's more and more people that rely on the popularity of an image, or the association to the popularity of a story format they're going to base their image off of, instead of their gut feeling on a situation, or their deep curiosity that they've just been pondering on for days, even though it may not fall into the popularity conversation. It's so deep and powerful it causes you to think, and I don't see too much of that.
You saying this really makes me think that I think is the place for me where I'm so drawn to anarchism, and to the idea of, you know, they say, you know, the big thing is who will build the roads, right? That's the big joke. And my thing is, let's see. Like, let's see. Because it's just like saying, well, who let the human mind free itself. Like, why have it be the way that everybody's always built the roads? Let somebody try to experiment and build the roads in a totally new way. So long as you're telling us who's going to build the roads.
I want a highway of wildflowers, and I want my land speeder.
And you know what? Why not? Yeah, let somebody build a land speeder. Right?
Yeah.
So long as you got roads, nobody's building a land speeder. And I think that's kind of, and it's why, I was a little remiss to use the term street artist with you, because I know that those guys, for the most part, are like, we know how to build the roads. I just need to copy how to build the roads as best as possible. And yet you have certainly, as I said, earlier, you've built your own road, and it's clear that like nobody's going to be able to copy you. I mean, that's not you're uncopyable. Whereas just about every one of these other Xerox guys, you know what I mean, is instantly copyable, as you say. So what I want to ask you about being an artist who it has a political bent, and who is not afraid of pushing out that your thoughts politically. I know that you're very much an individualist in the way of evolving consciousness, that you believe, people need to evolve their consciousness in order for us to all be able to move along. I want to ask you, because it's a question that I've been asking. I've had several artists on the show. What do you think? There aren't a lot of artists in sort of our movement, in the movement towards more freedom and less of the state. Yeah. You're somebody who came to it after expressing your views for a very, very long time. It's not like this influenced your views. It's just that it matched up with it. There are obviously a lot of other artists like you. What do you think is missing in terms of the message of the movement, now having met some people? What are the things that resonated with you that you said, okay, yeah, there are other artists that I know that this would resonate with them? What is it that we're not communicating, or how is it that we should be communicating it better?
I think that the problem is the filters that people interpret through, and the places they subscribe to get their information from constantly cloaks things under a certain tone or a certain texture that we recognize as some of that more retro, pre-programmed stuff. Knowledge that comes across like, oh, that's this or that's that, I don't want to associate with it. That's why I wanted to go down to Narcapoco, see for myself. And it confirmed some things for me, and it opened my mind up to a lot of other things, and so I think that's the main problem for most people, is understanding how to obtain any bit of information now with this fake news, with the media proving itself on every level to be BS, and a handful of people that we may follow online, some of them crumbling apart in our eyes. It's hard to know where do you pull your information from. So I've been learning that it has to be firsthand. If you can't go there and confirm it for yourself, you're not going to know. So that's why I went, I find myself way out there on my own on a lot of things, the way I see the world, the way I want to go about fixing things or approaching conversations about the way we want to see things turn out is definitely it's still, I find myself still, even with finding anarchist, I find myself in a state of being a super individual still. I'm not 100% anarchist, but I am at the same time very similar. So for me, it's important that I don't put a label on myself. I associate around these things.
I like
I'm
that.
still learning too.
I like that. I actually have had a lot of conversations. I actually had a conversation yesterday of how we use these labels because they're efficient sometimes, but how none of them really have ever fit for me. The principles certainly fit, right? The idea of not initiating violence against another person, of not stealing from somebody, the idea of pushing peace when you can, of having voluntary interactions. But it's like to put a label on it almost minimizes that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I consider myself, there's a percentage of me that totally identifies with hippies, but then there's a part of me that lives outside of that definition. You're a person who labels themselves as a hippie probably would not approve of my lifestyle 100%. They probably have a lot of criticisms of me. I indulge in areas of capitalism out of necessity, and a small percentage of want. But that want is so small. It really is. The necessity is real. And so, I find myself identifying with anarchy a great deal. And, I find bits and pieces of me that identify with socialism and democracy, especially the original Greek definition of democracy. And I believe in tribalism to that extent too. So there's and I'm also a bit of a utopian, and I believe in philosophy, and certain aspects of religion are appealing to me, but not the whole book, not the whole piece. Buddhism, the Vedas, fascinating information. So I don't know. I'm an eclectic knowledge seeker.
like it.
is kind of where I find myself.
In terms of where you find yourself, I'd love to talk a little bit about where you're finding yourself now, because clearly I saw the pieces that you did at Anarchapulco. Then I have been following you, and I know that you just got back from Hawaii. I saw two beautiful. I don't know if you did more than two, but I saw two beautiful pieces that you did there. Huge pieces, which were very serene, and I think a little different than what I'm used to seeing from you. Are you seeing yourself going through a new period in your own art, and what are you feeling? I mean, how is the movement happening for yourself in your own soul?
Well, it started with September 11th, and it ended with Occupy LA for me. The way I felt about politics and how I involved myself for many years was to point a finger and identify the bad guy. And I am now positive that politics is all bad guys. Before, I felt like there was always going to be some savior, some Bernie Sanders, some hero that could arise out of this chaos, that would have some voice of reason and some logic and some balls and some spirit and some gusto. But no, these fools are pussies. They're cowards. They're liars. They're sellouts. They're freaking cocksuckers, all of them, like Bill Hicks calls them.
Agreed.
And, they've turned out to be dark energy worshipers, and they're practicing dark energy metaphysics, which is really negative. And what was the question?
Well, the question is, it's clear that your mind is in a new. I don't know if I want to call it a more peaceful place, but it seems to be in a different place, and it's clearly beautiful work that's coming out. I'm just curious to know what's going on. That's all.
Well, I quite honestly, a couple of years ago, I had a very powerful psychedelic experience with some mushrooms, and I had a vision that I haven't had in like 15 years. And it was so profound and so powerful. I connected myself to my ancestors, which became this double helixed, vibrating spiral staircase of grandfathers being urinated out of a giant goddess who was peeing out the whole universe. And as bizarre and funny and silly and hippie and crazy as that sounds, it became very real and powerful, and it showed me that this political realm that we vote in, we participate in, we kill each other over is a very thin veneer of our human legacy, of our genetic roots through time and space, and that we are the universe, literally in the moment, seeing itself contextualize and evolve its own interpretation of self. And that was profound. That was super profound. And you could hear that through Terence McKenna or Timothy Leary or whoever, but until you experience it for yourself, it's just words, and it's just another book on the shelf. And so to experience that and to see that, to bring tears to my eyes and make my heart pound and fill my life with inspiration and give me a purpose to come out of that state and come back to this physical real world and put some real work in and dedicate myself to something that I am truly part of, that I didn't even understand before, is really where my head is at right now. And whether that fall into the realm of politics or it goes out of this frequency into some more distant spaces that we already are. We're already there. We're just waiting physically to catch up with this stuff. That's brought me a great sense of joy. I've been traveling a lot this past year and last year, and now going out to Kauai and seeing the freaking Garden of Eden alive and breathing and actually see the horizon with no silver dusty chemtrails, to actually see a dark blue horizon and to see a pure ultramarine electric blue ocean, and to see the system of how it works, how the water comes out of the ocean, forms the cloud, how it rains on the mountain, forms the waterfall back into the ocean, and see the cycle and be that cycle for a moment. That's really what it's all about. All this like Facebook, fucking cell phone live, this my new car, fucking my new mansion, my fucking her new boob job, whatever the fuck, that's all garbage. It really is. And it's really it's more of that retroism, get in line, here's your schlop, go sit at that table, digest it, and wake up. And yeah, you know, to break outside of that is so much joy. I want to share that, you know. So it is beautiful, and it is spiritual, and it's powerful, and that's where I've chosen to plug my curiosity into now.
I love it, man. Wow, what a beautiful sentiment. I can't wait to see. Like I say, I've been a fan for a long time, and I can't wait to see what's next, because you're a master at this point in it, so it's going to be great to see your future work. I want to thank you so much for coming on. I would encourage everyone to go and check out your work. You've been prolific for decades, and they will find something that they like for sure. So
not politics either, you know what I'm saying? I'm not done with that. It's just it's going to come in a different form now.
It's good, man.
You know, I'm not picking sides anymore.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Well, I will be continuing to follow you and continuing to promote your great work, and hopefully next time I'm in LA, I can buy you a drink or dinner or something, man. All right, brother. Thank you so much for coming on MEAR One. Thank you. We'll see you again soon.
Peace, brother.
Peace. So, man, Christian, one of the greats, bro. Amazing. I mean, you're a hip hop head, a b-boy. I mean, he's a big deal.
Yeah, he's a big deal, man. And it's cool to see the evolution, you know. It's amazing. And he nailed it, like, cuz I can definitely relate. As an artist, being called an artist is too restricted. It's too limited. You know, and with my personal journey, like through art and creativity, I hit a creative roadblock, so to get past that roadblock, I started looking at communication. And you know, it sounds like he did the same thing. Like, he hit that roadblock and he's like, I'm just done with it, you know, and I want to focus on something that is happening right now, and seeing that evolution is amazing.
It's I mean, it's great to be able to have articulate people, but again, to be able to express, because some of these things that we're talking about, I hate to say that you got to take it on faith, but I don't know how else to say it, right? You almost, but it's not faith in like a higher power per se. It's not faith in God, but it's almost faith in the human spirit. That it's like, I look around and I'm like, we were naked in like a forest. You know what I mean? Our ancestors, the ancestors whose blood is in us, who were not really any dumber than us or anything like that, who, you know, making sticks into spears so that they could like spear fish with loincloths. And we're fucking flying around in goddamn spaceships, bro.
It's crazy.
The human spirit, the idea that like, really a human mind can create the type of work that a MEAR One creates, and we can't figure out the answers to these questions. We need the solutions to be violent coercion. That's the best we got.
Right. Yeah.
7 billion minds on the planet, and the best we got is dropping a bomb. That's that's your best solution?
Yeah.
That's a fucking shit solution. That's the solution that your loincloth ancestors had. Punch somebody in the face.
And we were on a call the other day, and you said something that really hit me. You said you're dropping this bomb that's, what was it, like 3 million or something like that? Or...
Well, yeah. The bomb, supposedly the bomb is like 1 million.
Right.
But I think it's probably more than that. I've heard 17.
You said it doesn't create anything.
No, it just
destroys.
It destroys itself.
Yeah.
And everything else.
Everything around it. And spawning off of that, like building onto that, I'm looking at the patterns that occurred in my life the last couple of days, and I found something really interesting. I was researching this 13-year-old physicist, Max Lohan or something like that, and he said something that really hit me hard too. It was this idea that everybody thinks that any type of circumstance, outside circumstance, is either positive or negative. Okay. And he says it's actually positive and negative.
Perspective, right?
Right. But what I found as I started digging a little bit deeper, that positive and negative thing is occurring, but inside of us, it's either positive or negative.
For sure.
The perspective that we see it. So
I mean, that's why someone could be at peace in the middle of a war zone, or completely going nuts in the middle of like a peaceful, serene field full of flowers, you know, but inside their mind they could be going insane. Right?
So, and I think people got it backwards. They're looking at an outside circumstance. They're saying this is a negative or a positive thing, and going based off of that.
You know, it kind of brings us back full circle to the to this guy, the Facebook shooter, right?
Yeah.
That it's like, it's funny because I heard the video that he said beforehand where he's like, why he was doing this, and he's like, I'm doing this because I've got nothing. And then he proceeds to, he's sitting in a car. He proceeds to say, I work at this place. He's got a job. He's clear. He weighs 200 something pounds. He's clearly eating.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, yo, you have so much.
Right.
You have so much. And your perspective that you have so little. Like, what's funny is there are 1 billion people on this planet that would kill to have your problems.
Yeah.
And you're killing because you think you have problems.
Yeah. Wow. It's powerful.
It's a shame, man. It's a shame, but it is all about perspective, and I think that it's great to have artists around and in the mix, because that's who can really communicate these ideas in a way that people can understand. And you know what? Without art, without being surrounded by art, we are doomed.
Yeah.
We are doomed to consume. I mean, because that's poison. That's the poison that could be that can come out. I mean, we're live streaming on Facebook right now, right? We've taken the show to show, to try to dismiss, pull some lies apart, give people some truth, and give people some beauty, right? Give you some truth, give you some beauty.
Yeah.
It can be used for truth and beauty, or it can be used for the most poisonous, terrible, senseless, evil, and violence.
Yeah.
And it's up to us to choose.
Yeah. Awesome.
It's up to us to choose. Well, I think we're coming up on it, man. Let me say goodbye to the people.
All right.
Well, great show today. Thank you for joining us. I really want to thank MEAR One for coming on. That was a real treat for me. Like I said, I've been a fan for a very, very long time, and so getting to have your artistic heroes sit down and have a conversation with you is always a joy. You know, one thing that he said is get out there and experience it for yourself, and I think that is so true. You have to get out into the world, and you've got to go and find that truth and beauty, because you know what? It's not going to be pressed onto you. What's going to be pushed at you is, if it bleeds, it leads. It's going to be violence. It's going to be negative, dark sexual energy. It's going to be junk food. But the rest is out there too. You can go and you can have truth and beauty in your life, but you're going to have to stand up, turn off the phone, go out and get it. But only keep your phone turned off until next week at 10 a.m. Pacific time, when we'll be back with another show and another great guest. If you want to check us out in the podcast, you can do that on iTunes and Stitcher. You can go and check out the archive of this show at youtube.com/Vin Armani, or the best of, which will include this week MEAR's interview as a standalone. And I would really encourage you to share that, because I think he has a very powerful message. That'll be on the Facebook page of Activist Post, the YouTube of Activist Post. So that's youtube.com/Activist Post. So until next week, I want to thank my co-host and producer, Christian Reyes, for battling through our new sound, and we will see you again next week. Stay free.